Hey, this is Robert with Something Beautiful, here to share a late night ceiling thought with you, where I just share whatever comes to my mind as I stare at the ceiling late at night. Lately, a lot of things have been on my mind, and I feel like the biggest thing that's been on my mind is this passage of time and how it changes as we grow older. I think about when I was a kid and how time passed so differently. Even just Christmas to Christmas, it felt like Christmas took forever. And now it feels like Christmas, is here in a blink of an eye. It's strange how you get used to the passage of time. You come to expect it. You come to expect that summer will come, and then winter, and then fall. And I know I'm saying them all out of order, but the point is there's a certain kind of expectation that gets built in your mind. I think in the same way we expect more people to be in our lives, Like we expect that we'll meet, new people at different phases in our life, at different points. And I think one of the surprising things is that isn't something that maybe comes so naturally, I guess I used to think it would always be like school, or it'd always be like other situations, like when I was in high school and I worked jobs, it felt like an extension of high school. It's like now when I work jobs, it's a fun environment, but it's different to be valued for your work than to be valued for the person you are, Not to say that you are valued for the person that you are necessarily in those other situations, but it feels like it's a lot closer to that than it is to valuing you for your work. Like when you're in high school, they value you as a person, at least to some degree. If you're an A student or a B student or a C student, it doesn't necessarily reflect how they feel about you. In fact, I knew many academically not as successful students who were very well liked by teachers simply for who they were. It's interesting, to think about all the different changes and moments in one's life. I often ask myself, if I were the protagonist in a movie, what would I want them to do? And I try to follow that sometimes. Sometimes not so much. Sometimes the protagonist can make the wrong decision. Sometimes they can make the right decision. I was thinking about this moment in a book, Slaughterhouse-Five. Although I've never been able to find it after I read it, but sounds like something Borges would write, honestly. But basically there's this moment where they talk about being like on the streets in New York and just freezing time, and then living after you've frozen time and existing in that space. And I just think that's something I relate to so much. I'm not somebody who feels this pressure from time in the same way I see other people feel it, but I certainly feel it all the same, and it weighs on me, it weighs on my body, it weighs on my mind. It weighs on my soul. I sometimes feel much older than I am, sometimes much younger. It's weird how life does that. It's weird how, and you're in the best moments of your life, everything's moving fast, and the worst, everything's moving slow. Don't we wish it was the opposite? Don't we wish the best moments would last forever and the worst would be as quick as that? It's strange how life works. And how we just have to exist with it. We just have to accept it and move forward. Sometimes we don't have to accept it though, and I think too often we trick ourselves into believing that we have to accept it. That we have to accept all these negative scenarios, that we have to accept this judgment upon us that everybody puts. We have to act like that is the end all be all of our judgments, and their judgment upon us is correct and accurate. Recently I was applying for these jobs, and I'd put out this resume that I had thought everybody wanted. You know, I'd put it on it, you know, the typical things. I did a build a resume thing on, I don't know, on whatever website. There's so many of them. And I'd put all these things on it, and I'd been very confident in those things, and I felt they expressed me very well in a way that people were like, oh, that man's very articulate, you know. Look at him, he's very well put together. What a nice young man. I didn't get a lot of callbacks. So it really kind of hurt my pride. I got really disappointed. And so I decided to make a resume that was, you know, just what I wanted to put on it, rather than what other people wanted on it. Or rather what, you know, this website told me to put on it because it made me look put together and, you know, like they should hire me. So I wrote this little, you know, this professional summary, and I was very honest, you know. I was like, this is the part where I'm supposed to impress you with fancy words and fancy things that have no value, because anybody can say words, but so few can actually do the actions that put meaning into those words, or something like that. And I sent it out, and I got quite a few callbacks. I got a lot more than I did with the old one. I don't know, I guess I just think this idea of being put together and being nice and polished is overrated. I think the thing above all that should be pursued is raw, honest truth. I think there's no higher ideal to pursue and to be constantly achieving. I can only hope that by the end of my life, people call me an honest man. That would be amongst the greatest compliments they could give me, surely. My cat's by me right now, and it's interesting how he purrs before I even touch him, like he's anticipating my touch. Almost like his mere proximity to me makes him happy. That's a nice ideal to strive for too, huh? Just to bring happiness to people by mere proximity. If only. But we should try, right? Regardless of the failure that we may experience, like Gatsby says, right? Beat against the current, bore back ceaselessly into the past. Or maybe like Hemingway. It's pretty to think like that, isn't it? No. It's necessary to think like that. Thank you. I hope you guys have a good night. Like and subscribe or whatever. Unsubscribe, dislike. Do as you please. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great night. Peace.